Good evening, and thank you for joining us for this webinar on personal climate action. My name is John Silcox. I'm the Public Information Officer for the Fairfax County Office of Environmental and Energy Coordination. I'll be moderating tonight's webinar, which is brought to you by Carbon-Free Fairfax, an education and outreach initiative that emphasizes ways that county residents and community members can decrease their greenhouse gas emissions in support of the county's goals to be carbon neutral by 2050. And tonight we're going to be talking about ways you can save money, reduce your carbon footprint, adapt to changing climate conditions, and really help us in reaching those goals. We'll also be highlighting programs and incentives to help reduce those upfront costs for taking those climate actions. Things like getting an energy audit, installing electric heat pumps or other energy efficient appliances, getting solar panels, or switching to an electric vehicle. We'll also be sharing ways you can adapt and become more resilient to extreme heat, severe storms, and flooding, and other changing climate conditions. Before we begin, I'd like to thank my colleagues, Jim Person with Fairfax County's Office of Public Affairs, Sarah Giorello, Kate Daly, and Allison Homer in the Office of Environmental and Energy Coordination for helping us make this event possible tonight. And then a few housekeeping notes. This webinar will be live streamed and recorded. It will be available to view on Fairfax County's YouTube channel and OEC's Facebook page following the conclusion of tonight's webinar. As we are streaming, attendees, you can submit your questions through the comment function on Facebook or on YouTube, whichever platform you're using to view. And we'll certainly be holding time at the end for questions following the presentation from our guest speakers. Now it's my pleasure to introduce you to our two presenters, Emily Bohr and Melanie Malsh. Emily has served as OEC's outreach specialist since 2022, supporting the office's communication and public outreach efforts. She holds a degree in environmental studies from George Mason University. So thanks, Emily, for being here. And our other presenter tonight is Melanie Malsh. She joined OEC in 2023 and is a community specialist with the office's climate planning team, leading implementation for the county's climate adaptation plan, Resilient Fairfax. Melanie engages with community members and county staff and collaborates on initiatives that enhance local climate action and build community resilience to extreme heat, flooding, and severe storms. And Melanie holds a degree in environmental studies from the University of Pittsburgh. So thank you, Melanie, for being with us. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Emily to get us started. Take it away.
Hi, I'm Emily Bohr, and welcome to the Personal Climate Action livestream. During this presentation, we will share actions that you can take to help save energy and money, reduce your greenhouse gas emissions, and build resilience at home. And we'll also provide you some tips on how you can take action in your community. This presentation is being given by Fairfax County's Office of Environmental and Energy Coordination. OEC's mission is to improve the quality of life in Fairfax County for all by advancing climate action to reduce emissions, build community resilience and adaptation, preserve natural resources, and promote sustainability. OEC's focuses on environmental administration and policy, making county government operations greener, community programs and innovation, and climate planning. In carrying out its work, OEC coordinates and communicates across multiple sectors, helping to connect the dots between county departments, partners, regional jurisdictions and groups, nonprofits and community groups, businesses, and our residents. During today's presentation, we'll go through 5 different sections. First, we'll discuss climate basics, highlighting the greenhouse effect, greenhouse gas emissions, and how we contribute to them, and our changing climate in Fairfax County. Second, we'll share and highlight actions that you can take to reduce your greenhouse gas emissions. Third, we will go over how you can build resiliency and adapt to our changing climate. And then finally, we'll highlight how you can get involved with Fairfax County's climate initiatives. And then we'll wrap up with some resources, some contact information, and a Q&A section. So before we get into the climate basics, we wanted to make sure that everyone understands the difference between weather and climate. Weather are the conditions that we experience day to day, including individual storms and events. And climate is the average of weather patterns over an extended period, generally 20 years or longer. Our climate is what's changing, and we're seeing shifting and more extreme weather patterns, as well as other impacts. Climate change is largely caused by the generation of greenhouse gases from human activity. These gases, which may also be referred to as GHG emissions, are generated when fossil fuels, such as natural gas or coal, are burned, and from industrial and agricultural practices. There are four major greenhouse gases that contribute to climate change: carbon dioxide, which is also known as CO2, methane, nitrous oxide, and fluorinated gases. We need to reduce emissions of all of these gases, but we put an emphasis on carbon dioxide as it makes up a majority of our emissions, which is approximately 80% in the United States. So this slide shows the greenhouse effect, which you might have heard of before. This is a naturally occurring phenomenon that's needed to preserve life on Earth. However, high levels of greenhouse gases emitted by humans are causing the Earth to warm exponentially. As seen in the illustration, the sun's solar radiation moves down on the Earth and either stays in the Earth's atmosphere with the one yellow arrow, or it escapes with that other yellow arrow going up. Greenhouse gases, which are shown as the light gray and the dark gray band on top of the band titled atmosphere, they trap solar radiation inside of the atmosphere and make it harder for the radiation to escape, shown by the orange and red arrows reflecting back onto the Earth. And that is what causes the Earth to warm. This illustration also highlights that some emissions, specifically carbon dioxide or CO2, can be absorbed and stored naturally in carbon sinks, such as plants, soils, and oceans. And that's depicted by the green tree in the illustration. So, how do you contribute to climate change? In the US, most greenhouse gas emissions come from the burning of fossil fuels for energy, transportation, and industrial needs. Many of our personal actions, directly or indirectly, produce emissions, such as driving to work or to the store, heating and cooling our homes and buildings, using electricity, buying items, trashing those items, and eating heavily processed foods. While individually you're not a very large emitter, the choices that you make each and every day still do have an impact on the climate. In Fairfax County, a majority of emissions are from the building energy, which on this pie chart is shown as commercial and residential combined, and the transportation sectors. So the building energy and transportation sectors are where a majority of our emissions come from. These areas are also where we can have the biggest impact in bringing down our local emissions. We wanted to note that Fairfax County government and public schools are only responsible for about 5% of the community's emissions. 95% comes from the community itself. It's also important to focus on non regional actions to reduce emissions. For example, we spoke about food and waste in the previous slide, which show up minimally in Fairfax County's inventory on this pie chart. But greenhouse gases know no boundaries. They don't know if they're in Iceland, Fairfax County, Seattle, they don't know where they are. So climate action is a global necessity and it cannot be spot treated. And I want to pass it to Melanie to talk more about our climate.
Thanks, Emily. Hello, everyone. I'm Melanie. Global emissions are already having an impact on our region. In the decades to come, our region will continue to get warmer, wetter, and weirder with climate change. I'll be going over some localized climate projections developed under Resilient Fairfax, our first climate adaptation and resilience plan, which was finalized in 2022. In Fairfax, we are experiencing and can continue to expect to see intensifying impacts related to extreme heat, flooding, and severe storms. Our climate is projected to get warmer. We are already seeing approximately 30 days of extreme heat, which is defined as a day at or above 90 degrees each year. As climate change worsens, we can expect to see approximately 70 extreme heat days per year by 2085. Certain areas of the county will experience even higher temperatures due to the urban heat island effect, which occurs where there is a lack of natural land cover, such as tree canopy or green space. Our climate is also expected to get wetter in the coming years. For example, in July 2019, there was a rainfall event where we saw close to 4 inches of rain fall in 1 hour. As Fairfax's climate changes, events like that, which caused over 14 million in damage to our roads, residences, and county facilities, will become more frequent. We're also likely to experience more coastal flooding due to a projected 1 to 3 feet of sea level rise by 2050. And our climate is going to get weirder. Events like derechos and hurricanes will become more frequent and intense, which could mean more frequent power outages and damaged property. So, why should you care about climate change? We already noted that the climate will get warmer, wetter, and weirder, and that some of the projections will result in hazards. But electrical outages and property damages are not the only concern. Climate change also poses a major threat to public health, with extreme heat in particular expected to exacerbate pre-existing conditions like asthma and harm heat-sensitive populations like our youth, older adults, and low-income communities. Climate change can also cause vector ranges to shift, increasing the prevalence of tick and mosquito-borne diseases in the area. To tackle the root cause of climate change and to try to avoid and reduce the severity of the impacts that we just covered, Fairfax County has three major plans in place: two to address the cause of climate change, and one that addresses the effects. On the cause side, in green, we are doing our part in the global effort to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. That means reducing emissions from buildings and energy, transportation, waste, and other sectors. Emissions must be reduced on a global scale for any difference to be made, but we can do our part locally and we can serve as leaders for others to follow. Within that green emissions reduction bucket, we have two plans. CCAP is the Community Wide Energy and Climate Action Plan, or the plan that applies to the whole Fairfax County population. CCAP contains a community wide goal of carbon neutrality by 2050. The Operational Energy Strategy, or OES, is focused on reducing emissions in county government buildings and operations only. As noted previously, county government operations are only responsible for 5% of our local emissions. The OES contains a goal of county government operations becoming energy carbon neutral by 2040. On the effects side, in orange, we are adapting to and boosting our resilience to the impacts of climate change that we experience here locally, such as increasingly severe storms, flooding, and extreme heat. Resilient Fairfax is a plan that focuses on climate resilience and adaptation to those impacts, addressing both county operations and the community. All of these plans have been adopted or accepted by our elected officials and are now being implemented. Now that you know some climate basics, you may be asking yourself, what can you personally do? In the following slides, Emily will cover actions you can take to help us meet our community-wide carbon neutrality goal, ensure your household is prepared for climate hazards, and spread the word and get involved in climate action at home and in your community.
Thanks, Melanie. So first, we'll be focusing on actions to reduce you and your household's greenhouse gas emissions. Knowing your numbers. If you're not sure where to start, there are several online calculators that will help you identify where you produce the most emissions and highlight ways to take actions and save money. The U.S. Environmental Protection Agency's, or EPA's, carbon footprint calculator is a great place to start. All you'll need are some easy to obtain numbers, such as those from your utility bills, your car fuel cost, and the average number of miles you drive in a week or year. Here's a snapshot from EPA's calculator. It focuses on home energy, transportation, and waste. And some of the information that this calculator needs is listed on this slide to give you an idea of what might be asked of you. Now, let's drill down on home energy. Please note that the suggestions we'll be going over focus on things that you can do at home, but they are generally also applicable to all buildings, including work, businesses you shop at, or your local nonprofit organizations. So, in our homes, a majority of our home energy use comes from heating and cooling. Water heating, appliances, lighting, and electronics also contribute to our energy use. And on the next couple of slides, we'll dig into how we can reduce our energy use. So, assessing your home energy. As highlighted a few slides ago, it's good to know your numbers, and having a general understanding of your baseline energy usage and your problem areas will help you identify fixes that will have the most bang for your buck. We highly recommend hiring a professional to perform a home energy assessment, since an assessment will help identify problem areas in your home and recommended improvements. Assessors will use equipment to detect sources of energy loss, such as infrared cameras or furnace efficiency meters, and provide you with tips and guidance on how to best address the issues that they find. Energy assessments are an important step in addressing building emissions. This is true even in our own government facilities. Fairfax County has performed energy audits at over 20 of its facilities and counting, and we're using these assessments to implement much needed building energy improvements. To help you get started on addressing your home energy use, you can check out the federal tax credit available to offset assessment costs. Additionally, if your home is in the Dominion Energy Territory, you may want to check out their programs that provide rebates for certain home energy improvements. And if you're not sure that you're ready for a professional audit, you can follow do it yourself or DIY instructions from the U.S. Department of Energy. And you can take advantage of a few Fairfax County Public Library offerings that we'll highlight on the next slide. So, weatherizing your home. As mentioned, more than half of your home energy use comes from heating and cooling your home. When your home is inefficiently sealed or insulated, your HVAC system has to work harder to keep your home warmer in the winter and colder in the summer. So, we recommend weatherizing, which means performing actions such as sealing leaks, adding insulation, or replacing drafty windows or doors. This can save you an average of 15 to 20% on your heating and cooling costs. A contractor can help find these spots for you, or you can find them yourself and fix the minor ones through Fairfax County Public Library, even as a renter. Through the library, you can check out thermal cameras, which attach to smartphones and help you spot the temperature difference between inside and outside to help you find where those air leaks might be. The library also has conserve kits with caulking, weather stripping, and socket sealers to help you seal leaks for free. There are also federal tax credits that you may qualify for to help offset the cost for the installation of insulation or new windows and doors. Additionally, as briefly touched upon, weatherizing and reducing energy use is good for all buildings. In Fairfax County, community associations such as homeowners associations, places of worships, or nonprofit organizations can receive grant funding to weatherize and make other energy improvements through the Energy Conservation Assistance Program. One thing to note, sealing your home should be balanced with adequate ventilation, like opening your windows. Otherwise, indoor air quality can become dangerous, especially in Fairfax County, where radon leaks and the use of home appliances powered by natural gas is quite common. Going electric. Due to some statewide mandates, such as the Virginia Clean Economy Act, our grid is becoming cleaner, and we're gradually reducing our use of fossil fuels and moving to a more renewable energy to produce electricity. Going electric, which means switching to all electric appliances and heating systems, will now help you get ahead of the game, tap into federal tax credits and incentives, and reduce your greenhouse gas emissions in the long run. If going all electric may not be feasible for you, we suggest that as systems in your home need to be replaced, such as your HVAC system, your water heater, or other appliances, that you consider switching to an electric alternative. At the very least, consider more efficient appliances when they need to be replaced, such as Energy Star or WaterSense models. These models will also save you money in the long run, and there may be tax credits or local utility rebates available for them. We understand that renters may not be able to ask their property managers to make these changes. So there are a few things that renters can try to do to lessen their reliance on fossil fuel powered systems and appliances. For example, instead of using a stove or oven that's already in your home, renters can use electric appliances like an induction cooktop or an air fryer. As another example, renters can also bring down their thermostat and cautiously use space heaters to heat the rooms they're using instead of using their HVAC system. So we've noted a lot of big actions that you can do at home in the previous slides, but there are a few small things that you can do to save energy and money at home on a daily basis. As heating and cooling costs contribute a lot to your energy bill, we recommend turning your thermostat back by 7 to 10 degrees for the 8 hours a day that you're not home to see savings on your bill, and you could potentially see as much as 10% on heating and cooling costs. If you're able to replace or need to replace your thermostat, you could get a smart thermostat, which could help you regulate your home's temperature when you're not at home through your phone. Your local utility company may have incentives and rebates for smart thermostats, so you can get them at a discounted rate, which will help you increase your savings. You can also replace your HVAC filters every 3 months. Renters, we recommend checking in with your property manager. Some allow you to change your own filters, and some will replace them more frequently if you put in a request. We also recommend washing clothes in cold water and hanging them to dry, using LED light bulbs and reducing your use of lights in general if possible, and unplugging electronics when they're not in use to reduce vampire energy. Vampire energy refers to when items that are plugged in but are not in use are still pulling energy to them. Vampire energy loads can add around $200 to annual energy cost, so you want to invest in smart power strips, some of which can be controlled via an app on your smartphone, and that can help turn off power to appliances on timers or on demand. Installing solar. So, solar panels help green our grid and will help reduce your use of fossil fuels to power your home. There are mapping tools available, such as Nova Solar Map, that can help you determine if solar is right for your home based on how big of a system your roof may be able to accommodate and the level of shading on your roof from nearby trees or structures. As you assess your own home for solar, know that the county is also evaluating and installer solar panels on its facilities. A few are already in place, such as the Reston Fire Station, the Pender Housing Office, the Sully Community Center, and more. The county is planning for over 20 more projects to be installed by the end of 2025. We know the solar panels are an investment, but there are several solar group purchasing programs out there, such as Solarize Virginia and the Capital Area Solar Switch, which allow for homeowners to sign up for a free solar assessment and take advantage of discounted prices for solar panels, which is kind of like a Groupon. There also is a 30% federal tax credit available to deflect some of the upfront cost of solar installations. And as not everyone can afford solar or is able to install solar on their home, there are some alternatives available if you're interested in helping green the grid. Dominion Energy offers programs like REC Select and Dominion Energy Green Power to allow residents to pay an additional fee on their monthly utility bill to purchase renewable energy certificates and partially or fully match their electric use per month with renewable energy generation. Now that we've talked about building energy, we're moving on to the transportation sector, which makes up a significant number of emissions in Fairfax County, 43% to be exact. And here are some actions that you can use to help bring this number down. First, we suggest reducing the use of your personal vehicle and to look at biking or walking, since those are the most environmentally friendly, emissions free methods of travel available. For those lucky enough to live in Fairfax County, we have over 130 miles of bike lanes and 500 miles of bikeable trail that you could use to plan trips to the store or to your work. Public transportation is also a very climate friendly option. You could take the Fairfax Connector, which is Fairfax's public bus system, or the Metro and train, since these options produce just half of the emissions per mile traveled compared to a gas car. The Fairfax Connector system is also electrifying. We're on track to have an all electric bus fleet by 2035. When public or alternative transit just isn't an option, you can rideshare or carpool to your destination. And if you're unable to bike or walk, use public transit, or set up a van pool, you can also switch to an electric vehicle. So, switching to an electric vehicle, which are also known as EVs, um, is is a good way to reduce your emissions. So EVs produce less than 25% of the emissions of a gas-powered vehicle. And in Virginia, where our grid is getting greener, the emissions reduction potential is even greater. And Fairfax County is making the switch too. There are EVs in the county's fleet, electric Fairfax Connector and school buses, and even electric garbage trucks in Fairfax County. So why are we all making the switch? Like we said, EVs produce less than 25% of the emissions of a gas-powered vehicle, and there are also no tailpipe emissions with an EV, and that helps local air quality. While the upfront cost of an EV may be a lot to bear, there are federal tax incentives that can help with the cost for both new and used EVs. Up to $7,500 is available for new EVs so long as they meet certain requirements. And beginning in 2024, this credit is now available at point of sale at participating dealerships. For those going the used car route, you may be able to take advantage of up to $4,000 in federal tax incentives. Just like the new car incentive, this can also be claimed at participating dealerships. While an EV may be more expensive than its gas powered equivalent due to reduced fuel and maintenance needs, such as no oil changes that are needed in a fully electric EV, drivers can save $6,000 to $10,000 over the car's lifetime. Charging can also be a major concern for would be EV owners, but in addition to installing chargers at your home, there are over 200 publicly available chargers in Fairfax County, including some that are located at county facilities. If you're unable to charge at home, there are plenty of public fast charging options around, such as level 3 or DC fast chargers, which can fully charge an EV in as little to 20 to 30 minutes. For those of you who can charge at home, there are two different types of chargers. Level 1, which a charger usually comes with an EV, is the slowest charging option, but typically requires zero installation and zero electrical system upgrades. Level 2 chargers can fully charge an EV in 4 to 10 hours, but it may require some installation or electrical system upgrades with cost anywhere from $300 to $1,200. There may be rebates from utility providers, federal tax incentives, and waived local permitting fees for at home chargers. And Fairfax County also has the Charge Up Fairfax program, which could help your HOA or your condo association with grants and assistance to install EV chargers for residents and visitors of your community. Next, we'll move to actions that you can take to reduce your waste. Remember, in Fairfax, waste has a minimal impact on our local emissions, and they only account for 2% of our community's emissions. However, our consumer choices have significant upstream impacts, and there are some things that you can do to reduce those impacts. The 5 R's of waste management are refuse, reduce, reuse, repurpose, and recycle. Refuse is really the key here. It's imperative that we try to buy and produce less stuff, but it's also important to be able to repurpose and properly recycle our stuff when it reaches the end of its life. Fairfax County has a few programs in place to encourage recycling and incentivize waste reduction. The Purple Can Club, which is the county's glass recycling program, has diverted over 14,000 tons of glass from the landfill since it was founded. And Fairfax County is also expanding composting options. For now, you can drop off your food scraps at the I-66 transfer station, the I-95 complex, or any of the Park Authority's 10 farmers markets. So I'm going to pass it back to Melanie to share more.
We covered actions to lower your greenhouse gas emissions, but we know that our region will continue to experience climate hazards even if we all significantly reduce our carbon footprints. In the next few slides, we'll share some actions you can take to build resilience and adapt to extreme heat, flooding, and severe storms. Plants and trees in particular naturally absorb carbon dioxide and can shade your home, reducing home energy costs by up to 25% compared to those without natural shading. While trees play a role in carbon sequestration and help reduce our carbon footprint, they have a larger impact on our community's resilience efforts. Trees provide relief from extreme heat by providing shading and reducing the urban heat island effect. They also reduce the impact of flooding and runoff by absorbing floodwater. To plant, preserve, or conserve native trees, there are resources available from local organizations, including the county's Urban Forest Management Division, to assist in the buying and planting of native trees. Native vegetation is also necessary to help our community's resiliency. Native vegetation is adapted to our climate and requires no fertilizer and minimal water to survive. Like native trees, vegetation absorbs water and reduces the impacts of flooding and runoff. In addition to planting native vegetation, it's necessary to remove invasive vegetation. Invasives cause ecological harm and alter our native ecosystems, including changing soil conditions, which limits the types of plants that can grow in a specific place. Fairfax County has several resources and programs in place to help inform and educate on invasives and native vegetation, including the Watch the Green Grow program. There are also volunteer opportunities, such as the Park Authority's Invasive Management Area program, where you can get your hands dirty and help remove invasive plants from Park Authority properties. Extreme heat days are increasing in Fairfax County. These days will exacerbate heat-related illnesses such as heat stroke and exhaustion, especially in vulnerable populations. To boost resilience to extreme heat, there are several things that you can do. First, you can plant native trees, which help reduce the urban heat island effect. You can also install a cool roof to reflect sunlight, absorb less heat, and reduce energy costs. According to the US Department of Energy, cool roofing products usually cost no more than comparable conventional roofing products. And the best time to install a cool roof is during construction or when your roof is due for replacement. You can also paint your exterior walls with light colored paint to help your home absorb less heat. For those who need assistance in the hot months, the county's Department of Family Services offers a cooling assistance program to help eligible residents with payment of electric bills, purchase of window air conditioning units, and other services. Additionally, there are cooling centers located throughout the county at libraries, community centers, rec centers, human service regional offices, and homeless shelters. And lastly, you should ensure that you and others are adding water breaks and are adjusting outdoor work and recreation schedules to avoid peak heat times. Total annual precipitation events are projected to increase, and rain events are projected to become heavier, which amplifies flooding. Some things you can do to boost your resilience to flooding include checking if you have flood insurance, and if not, consider signing up for it. We recommend that homeowners and renters check out their home insurance and renters insurance policies, respectively, as those policies do not cover damage from flooding. Take advantage of the county's flood mitigation assistance program, which was launched July 1st of this year. And through this program, you can seek reimbursement for the installation of certain features on your home, like basement window well covers, floodproof windows, and flood barriers. Address yard flooding, drainage, or erosion issues on your property by consulting the Northern Virginia Soil and Water Conservation District's resources, including the Conservation Assistance Program, or CAP, which can provide you with grant funding to mitigate these issues. Evaluate the impervious surfaces and reduce them in your yard. This can help with blockages of stormwater pathways in your yard. And lastly, know how to submit a service request to the county's Stormwater Management Division. To boost your resilience to extreme storms, Fairfax Alerts is your go-to source for weather announcements and emergency preparedness newsletters. Fairfax County's Department of Emergency Management and Security has a preparedness program, Ready Fairfax, which can help make you through which you can make an emergency preparedness plan for your household, as well as emergency kits for when you need to shelter in place, go bags for when you need to evacuate, and kits for your vehicle. These kits would include things like first aid, toiletries, water, food, cash, medications, and other essential items. You may also consider keeping solar phone chargers for the event of a power outage, and keeping a backup generator handy to power items essential to your safety and well-being. You should also know the contact information of your local service provider to report outages, and receive updates on service restoration. It will take our whole community to reduce emissions, build resilience, and adapt to our changing climate. We need every community member to get involved. So climate change is a global issue. We can all do our part to reduce our community's emissions and adjust to our changing climate. Share and act on what you've learned, get involved in other groups, volunteer, and explore programs to help your household and your network. Be your community's champion. So we've shared a lot of information with you today. To get started, we recommend checking out OEEC's Climate Action Checklist. Our Climate Action Checklist contains 70 plus climate actions that you can take. We also have mini checklists focused on the topics we noted today: home energy, resiliency, transportation, waste, and natural resources. If you're interested in learning more about the county's climate plans and progress, visit OEEC's website. The next slides link to other resources that may be of help as you move forward. We want to specifically encourage you to take a look at our climate action dashboard to learn more about our community goals, programs, and resources to help you take action. And again, be involved and make a change. I'll pass it back to John Silcox to facilitate our question and answer section.
Well, thank you so much, Emily and Melanie, for that great presentation and all that really important information. As a reminder, if you do have questions, feel free to post them in the comments section, and we'll certainly try to address those as we move into the Q&A portion now. And I think we do have a couple of comments in that I think are important. So folks, please continue to post your questions and comments as you have them. But I want to start with just a couple of questions for our presenters that I'm sure is on the minds of folks in the audience. I'll start with you, Emily. What are what would you say, I guess, would might be the top three things you would recommend people do to lower their carbon emissions? You shared a lot of different actions, and for somebody who's maybe trying to figure out what to prioritize, what might you say to them?
Yeah, absolutely. That is a great question. I would say that number one, transportation is 43% of emissions in Fairfax County. So I would recommend using your personal vehicle less. So wherever you can, take advantage of Fairfax County's public transportation, our biking and walking trails, and consider carpooling. So just generally driving less. For number two, buying less stuff. So less food, less clothes, less everything. I don't know if you've been on TikTok lately, but underconsumption core is currently trending. And by reducing, repurposing, and recycling, you're impacting the overall chain of consumption and contributing more to our circular economy and lowering your own footprint. And I think the third thing, I would reduce your energy use. I know we talked a lot about that, but only having things plugged in when needed, air conditioning only on when you need it, lights off, fans off, stuff like that. Things can really not only reduce not only your energy bill, but also your carbon footprint. And I can pass it to Melanie if she has anything else to add.
Yeah, absolutely. So Emily mentioned buying less and consuming less. We discussed how emissions from waste are a smaller percentage of overall carbon emissions, but small behavior changes as a consumer can really add up. They give you a tangible place to start, and they give you momentum to work up to those bigger efforts. We mentioned a lot of big things, but I really think it's the small things. Considering what you buy, where it comes from, and where it goes can go a long way, whether it's clothing, whether it's food. Eating local and lower on the food chain is a good example of that. Where does it come from? Where does it go? It can help lower emissions that come from transportation and agriculture. And then with clothing or other items, considering how can you divert those from landfills? Can you donate it? Can you repair it? Can you compost it? And so those are some things that I think can lead to bigger efforts, which reduce your carbon footprint.
Great, thanks for sharing that information. We do have some comments coming in. I want to recognize. I saw that Chris Miles posted on our Facebook page. He posted a comment saying that he installed a Sense home energy monitoring system that reports how much power each device is using in his home. He notes that it took time for him to learn how to use that device in his home, but once he did, he was very surprised to see exactly how much power each device used, including how much his solar system was generating. And this was a device he was able to acquire through the Dominion Energy program. So that was a suggestion he made. And I just want to shout out to Chris because Chris participated in a previous webinar we did on home energy and some of the tax credits and rebates available for those upgrades. So love to see Chris sharing his knowledge with our audiences. Um, there was also a question as to there was a conference last year that was held here in Fairfax County. Supervisor James Walkinshaw put on a climate action conference last fall and shared some great information. Had some very good speakers talking about different aspects of climate action and some of the things that we're highlighting here today. The question is there going to be another conference this year? And my understanding is they are planning something again for this fall. So hopefully we'll be hearing more about that in the future. But I'll wait to let them announce that when those plans are finalized. But something to keep an eye out for definitely later this year. We're starting to see some more comments coming in. And we'll be getting to those here momentarily. One question I wanted to ask of our group, our presenters, is um, Emily. Earlier, you talked about the top three things you might recommend doing to lower your carbon emissions, and Melanie, you shared some information for that question as well. Um, in terms of just energy use at home, I'm curious, Melanie, or I'm sorry, Emily, what you would say is the most impactful thing you can do to reduce energy use at home.
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say that it's really reducing your use of natural gas since that is using a lot of energy. So, installing and using electrical appliances, so reducing your natural gas, your dependence on natural gas. Instead of using a gas oven or stove, using things like an air fryer, an induction cooktop, or a microwave. And then also, you could participate in Fairfax County's 2-degree challenge. That's a challenge held by our office, which is adjusting your thermostat 2 or more degrees if you want to reduce energy use in your house and also save some money on your bill. Melanie, I don't know if you had anything to add there.
No, I think that was awesome, Emily.
Yeah, thank you for those thoughts. I just wanted to note a few comments that are coming in. I had a comment from Parker saying that reducing air travel is huge, and he would encourage people to imagine how you would look at this if you were a tourist here. So basically, be a tourist in your own region. So we didn't talk specifically about air travel, but certainly as you're thinking about ways you can reduce your carbon footprint, when you can plan your trips in such a way that maybe you don't have to do much by plane, that certainly could be one significant thing to consider as well. I don't know if Emily or Melanie, you want to touch on that at all.
Yeah, I think that that's a great point, Parker. Air travel uses a lot of emissions, and I think reducing it as much as possible is really important. And DC is also a very interesting region. Fairfax County is very, very close to DC. There's a lot of fun things in the DMV, and you can definitely be a tourist here. It would not be hard. Melanie?
Yeah, I think when you don't have any other choice but air travel, you can also look for airlines or flight options that allow you to offset your carbon emissions. I think when you can avoid it, that's preferable. Um, but offsetting your carbon emissions is a great way to have an impact.
Another question we have is asking about what Fairfax County is doing to address the issue with easy pass transponders and incompatibility with most EVs. So I know we're not specifically um, talking about that particular system and how that works. So I don't know if we have the expertise on today's call to address that specifically. Um, but it certainly sounds like an issue maybe that some drivers and EV owners might be encountering. So I would encourage folks to reach out to our office by email, oecinfo@fairfaxcounty.gov, and we can route those questions to the appropriate person and maybe follow up on that specific issue and see what information we can share with you about that particular problem or issue, if that's something that you'd like to know more about. I also see a question here asking if the Office of Environmental and Energy Coordination is available to do presentations at nonprofit community groups. And we certainly do try to go out into the community and present on these topics and share this information to audiences. So we do have a request a speaker page on our website. You can go on that site, put in information on when your event is, who the audience is, and what you're looking for, and our staff can follow up with you to schedule something based on your time frame and the availability of our staff. So I encourage you to do that. We certainly want to share this information with our community and are happy to schedule those types of events whenever possible. Just looking to see if we have other questions and comments coming in. While folks continue to type in their questions and comments, I'll ask another question of our presenters. Um, so we talked a lot about maybe what residents, homeowners can do for those people who live in maybe a multifamily housing situation or who don't own their own home. Um, or is there some more advice that you can give on how they could work with landlords to make energy upgrades? So I'll throw that to Melanie first.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a renter myself. I would definitely recommend if some of these home energy changes or upgrades interest you, there are a lot of renter friendly options. And depending on your relationship with your landlord, we definitely encourage approaching them to see which ones they may be receptive to. Um, Emily mentioned a lot like replacing your HVAC filters more frequently can go a long way. Another easy switch for energy efficiency is switching to LED light bulbs. And you can also try to work with your landlord to Weatherize your home by sealing those air leaks from windows and doors and making sure that the air conditioning or the heating that you're paying for is staying where you want it to be. Um, Fairfax County's 2-degree challenge is another way that we encourage all residents to reduce energy from heating and cooling. And then you can also reach out to Dominion Energy to take part in renewable energy credit programs. And we have a blog post on green energy specifically for renters that we'd recommend checking out. Emily, if you wanted to add anything, I know you covered a lot earlier.
Yeah, no, I think you hit the nail right on the head there. That was great. And I think also kind of my answers to the last one were using electrical appliances instead of using your gas oven if you have one in your rented home. So using an air fryer or microwave rather than an oven can also reduce your energy use and help you be a little more greener.
Great. Well, thanks for sharing that additional information. I want to note we have a few more comments coming in. Parker notes he'd love to see carbon offsets that are local that you can see. He notes that I don't know if a carbon offset of saving forests in a far off land is really saving forests that are actually being threatened. So, kind of wondering a little bit more about how to see, the results of actions you're taking locally, how that's having local impact as well. I don't know that we have a lot of information we can share on carbon offsets, particularly. Our county and our office does post information. We've done some blog posts recently talking about how people can purchase um, renewable energy credits. That might be one option for you. Those programs are available. I don't know if they'll address that specific concern that you have about that local to local kind of thing, but certainly invite you to search our website, look for some of the information we've posted about renewable energy credits and some of the other links that we have available on that topic. And certainly feel free to reach out to our office directly if we can follow up on any specific questions. You can email us at oecinfo@fairfaxcounty.gov. Um, and I also see another comment from Parker noting that e-bikes are a great new option for transportation that makes biking more doable in a suburban situation and can also help with keeping healthy. And we just so happen to have posted an article recently on e-bikes. I don't know, Emily, if you want to say any more about that. We talked a little bit about driving and walking and biking more. So you can now do that with some e-bike options through Capital Bike Share.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a whole blog on our website. So if you go to OEC's website, you'll see e-bikes. I don't remember the full name of it, but it's definitely an e-bike blog written by our lovely intern Maya. And it talks a lot about Capital Bike Share and also the benefits of e-bikes. So Parker, you're absolutely correct. E-bikes are a great way to get around the region.
So again, feel free to post your questions or comments in the comments section. While folks are doing that, I want to ask another question of our presenters. So it just so happens to be Plastic Free July, and we talked earlier about some things you can do to reduce waste. Curious, Melanie, if you could say a little bit more about ways maybe people could curb the use of single-use plastics. We hear a lot about that, and in fact, we have some information on our blog recently about that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I loved, Emily, that you had mentioned beyond the 3 Rs. I think most people are familiar with reduce, reuse, recycle, but adding refuse in there at the beginning, it's first for a reason, and then repurpose as well. So we say, refusing single use plastic in the first place is the best way to use less. Bring your own containers, bring your own bags, bring your own utensils. You can choose to reuse and repurpose plastic containers, especially if they're more durable. And that's a really great way to extend their life and use less in the future. We also recommend so that would fall under repurposing. So repurposing those plastic items, and then we recommend recycling correctly. Um, Avoiding wish cycling, it can be tempting to just hope that something gets recycled because you put it in there, but taking the time to learn what your curbside service actually can recycle, um, as well as researching where to recycle those items that would not be accepted curbside goes a long way for making recycling more effective. Some examples that might not be curbside friendly to recycle are those plastic bags that you can get from the grocery store. Some grocery stores or other um, retail areas may have a plastic film recycling option. And finally, just encouraging those around you to make the switches, reduce and refuse plastic, and use their voices to advocate for solutions to plastic pollution can go a long way.
Well, very helpful information. Thank you for sharing that. Well, we're getting towards the end of our time, but I just want to give folks just another minute or two if there are any final questions or comments we can address before we wrap up. And while folks are doing that, I'll just ask one more question of our presenters. Um, I know we talked a little bit about the importance of planting native trees and native plants and dealing with the invasives that we're seeing more of in the community. I was curious, Melanie, if you could maybe follow up and tell people a little bit more about how you would identify which trees and plants might be native to the area when you're making decisions about that.
Yes, absolutely. So we have a lot of resources. There is a wealth of information for trees and vegetation that are native to Fairfax County. Those can all be found on our county website. A quick search for tree selection on fairfaxcounty.gov can pull up lots of lists for tree species or vegetation, plants and shrubs that you might want to have in your yard. There are These lists will contain information about other considerations such as the sun that your yard receives, and then the soil and other plants around it. So the Park Authority and our Urban Forestry Management Division provide several of these lists. They include sources such as the Virginia Native Plant Society. Plant Nova Natives provides a lot of information to find the right native trees or plants for your yard. And then the Northern Virginia Soil and Water Conservation District offers sustainable garden tours to give ideas and inspiration for your yard. And they do hold an annual native seedling sale of low cost native tree and shrub seedling packages. And
Well,
then,
thank
Emily,
you.
sorry,
Oh, go ahead.
I
Yeah.
didn't know if you wanted to add anything.
No, I think that that was a great answer. I was going to say Northern Virginia Soil and Water Conservation District. We work with them a lot, and they are a wealth of information.
Yeah, that's all great information. Thank you for sharing that. Um, well, I just want to note a couple of additional comments that have come in. So Chris, who we heard from earlier, also mentioned that he's now owned an EV for almost a full year. It's been great, and don't have anything but positive comments. So that's great to hear. And Chris, we'd certainly love to hear more about your experiences as you continue your energy journey. We've enjoyed having your participation in other activities that we've done, and look forward to continuing to work with you. I see that Parker is also commenting, asking if we're reaching out with these types of environment-related messages in other languages in the county. Just wanted to note that we do have a lot of material on our website that has been translated into some additional languages that we do take out into the community on some of our outreach events and activities, and we encourage our partners and stakeholders to share that information with their communities. But we continue to work to get out and really get this information out into folks, to the folks who need to hear it and need to know it, and we'll continue to work with our different partners to make that happen. So thank you for that. Um, well, with that, I think we'll go ahead and start to wrap up. We want to just note that it looks like we've answered most of the questions from our attendees, but before we close out, we'd like to share just a few more um, things about some of the programs that were mentioned locally that can help support clean energy and energy efficiency in some of these climate actions. So as it was noted earlier, federal tax credits are available now through 2032 for a variety of energy efficiency improvements. Those improvements can include transitioning to electric equipment, such as heat pumps and heat pump water heaters, as well as the efficiency measures like insulation and air sealing. So certainly take advantage of those credits while they're available. And through 2034, there are also income tax credits for clean energy equipment, such as rooftop solar, wind energy, geothermal heat pumps, and another type of clean energy equipment. We've also talked about some of the Dominion energy programs that Fairfax County residents can benefit from related to getting home energy assessments, buying Energy Star appliances, and adding smart controls for heating and cooling. They also have programs like Rec Select and Energy Green Power that do allow residents to pay an additional fee on their monthly utility bills to purchase renewable energy certificates, which is something we noted earlier. So that's also something you can look into. And finally, there are programs for households that may need assistance with weatherization projects or help paying energy bills. Two programs in particular: the Virginia Department of Housing and Community Development offers financial assistance with weatherization program and projects for low-income households. And the Virginia Department of Social Services offers cooling assistance for bill and equipment payment for eligible low-income households. And you can find information and links to those programs on our website, particularly through our home energy page. If you're on the site, and you can go there to find a lot of that information about these programs. And with that, I just want to thank our everyone in our audience for joining today's webinar on personal climate action. Also want to thank our presenters, Emily and Melanie. If you enjoyed this webinar and want to learn more about ways to reduce your emissions, save money, and take climate action, visit our webpage and certainly find a lot of the resources that we talked about in this presentation on that website. You'll find checklists, videos, infographics, other resources that can help you take climate action there. And once again, if you tuned in late, a full recording of the webinar will be available on the county's YouTube channel or OEC Facebook page, whichever you want to use to view. And so you can certainly go back and watch the full recording at that point. So thank you very much. We appreciate your attendance, and we hope you have a great rest of the evening.